There is a bulldozer sitting in northern Italy that has never moved a single load of dirt. It weighs 183 tons. It's the biggest bulldozer ever built, and politics made it useless before it turned a track. And that isn't even the strangest machine here. There's a 572-foot monster the US Army left rotting in the desert, a shovel so big they gave up moving it and walked away, and a bulldozer with 2 heads. Let's dig them up. Number 10. The Allis-Chalmers 555. In the early 1960s, American earthmoving had a very specific problem. Scrapers, those long, low machines that scoop dirt into a bowl and haul it away, had gotten enormous. And a scraper can't load itself efficiently. It needs a push, something behind it, shoving it into the cut so the blade bites deep and the bowl fills fast. The trouble was that no single tractor made enough power to push the biggest scrapers of the day. So contractors and manufacturers started doing something that looks absolutely unhinged today. They bolted 2 tractors together. The idea began with R.G. LeTourneau, whose Tourneaus of 1951 to 1953 joined 2 single-axle prime movers in line, with all the controls up front in the lead unit. LeTourneau Westinghouse carried the concept on as the Twin C pusher, which stayed on offer into the late 1950s. But the idea reached its peak in 1962 when Allis-Chalmers put its own version on the market, the Model 555. The 555 was 2 prime movers yoked nose to tail, producing 731 horsepower and weighing around 75 tons. Because it articulated in 2 places instead of 1, it could turn inside roughly half its own length. An eerie sight for something that size, folding in the middle like a caterpillar, according to the Historical Construction Equipment Association. The 555 was the last tandem prime mover design ever offered commercially, and it did not last. Allis-Chalmers listed it for 1962 and 1963, and that was the end. The HCEA's verdict is blunt. Impressive to look at, but a commercial and mechanical failure. Collectors who have chased the record say only a handful were ever built, and that brakes and final drives were the recurring weak points, which makes sense when you consider the machine was fighting itself every time it turned. But the 555 mattered anyway. That double-articulated layout it introduced went on to shape a whole generation of construction machinery. The 555 died. Its skeleton lived on, and almost nobody knows its name. Number 9. The Clark Michigan 675. Clark Equipment took over the Michigan Power Shovel Company in 1953, and by the mid-1960s, the Michigan name was one of the biggest in wheel loaders. Their Model 475 was already considered a monster. Then, in the early 1970s, Clark built something that made the 475 look like a toy. The Michigan 675 carried a bucket of 24 cubic yards, roughly double the 475's. It weighed around 190 tons, and it had 2 engines. The 1970 prototype used a pair of Detroit diesels from GM. The production machine switched to twin Cummins units, putting out a combined figure in the region of 1,270 horsepower. For years, it was the largest and most powerful wheel loader in the world. Here's the part that makes it a forgotten machine rather than a famous one. Between 1973 and 1976, Clark built exactly 14 of them. 14. Then the model was discontinued. 2 were later bought back by Clark, rebuilt, and sold on as 675C machines, an attempt to keep interest alive that went nowhere. Why did it fail? Partly cost. Partly the oil shock of the 1970s, which hit the quarrying and mining industries hard, and partly because the 675 was aimed at a market that didn't really exist yet. Mines in 1973 weren't running the kind of haul truck fleets that could justify a loader this size. 20 years later, they absolutely were, and by then Caterpillar and Komatsu were building the ultra-class loaders the Michigan had prototyped. Owners and collectors who have tracked the survivors reckon only around 3 of the 14 still exist, and fewer than that still run. For a machine that once held the world-size record, that's a brutally thin legacy. The 675 wasn't a bad machine. It was an early one, and in heavy equipment, being 10 years early is functionally the same as being wrong. Number 8. The Euclid TC-12. In 1952, General Motors started quietly hiring crawler tractor engineers. One of them, R.C. Williams, came directly from Caterpillar, where he had been Assistant Director of Research since 1935. GM wasn't building crawlers at the time. That was the point. In 1953, GM bought Euclid Road Machinery, a respected maker of scrapers and haul trucks with no crawler line at all, and the pieces snapped together. Euclid's earth-moving equipment plus GM's new tractor program equaled a full-line competitor aimed straight at Caterpillar's throat. The weapon was the Euclid TC-12. The first prototype went into testing at GM's Milford Proving Ground in July 1954, and 10 pre-production machines were loaned to contractors around the country. Production units reached customers in 1955, and they were like nothing else on a job site. The TC-12 had 2 engines, 2 GM 671 diesels, each driving one track through its own Allison Torquematic power shift transmission. The powertrains were completely separate. Lose one engine and you could limp home on the other, and the tractor's frame was split lengthwise down the middle, so the 2 halves could oscillate independently over rough ground. Watching one crawl over a boulder field, the machine appears to twist itself in half. Early production TC-12s made a little over 400 net horsepower, rising to 425 by 1958. For comparison, the Caterpillar D9 that launched the same year made 286 horsepower. The TC-12 was, on paper, the most powerful crawler tractor on Earth. So why don't we remember it? Because it was also the most complicated crawler on the market, and it was prone to expensive mechanical problems. 2 of everything means 2 of everything to fix. Contractors who loved the power did not always love the repair bills, and it still had to be split apart for highway transport. The model was renumbered as the 8280 in 1966. After a U.S. Justice Department ruling in 1968, Euclid's non-truck earth-moving products were rebranded as Terex, and the 8280 carried on under that name until production finally ended in 1974. By then making 440 net horsepower and weighing 52 tons. The CCA puts total production of the TC-12 and its 8280 successor at 901 machines over 19 years. Caterpillar sold more D9s than that in good years. General Motors took its swing at Caterpillar, and Caterpillar didn't fall. Number 7. The Allis-Chalmers HD41. At the 1963 Chicago Road Show, Allis-Chalmers rolled out a bulldozer that stopped the show. The HD41 was, at that moment, the largest crawler tractor anyone had ever built. Under the hood sat a turbocharged Cummins V12, displacing 1,710 cubic inches and making 524 horsepower. Then Allis-Chalmers took it away again. The 1963 machine was a preview, not a product. The company wanted to be certain the thing would actually work, that it would be a reliable producer that lowered cost per cubic yard, not a giant orange headache. So the HD41 went into one of the longest development programs in the industry's history, with prototypes tested in wildly different conditions across the country. Customers finally got to buy one in 1970. 7 years after the reveal, it was worth the wait mechanically. Built in Springfield, Illinois, the production HD41 weighed roughly 65 tons in working trim and could be fitted with a grading blade over 20 feet wide and a ripper on the back capable of tearing up ground that would otherwise need blasting. It was aimed squarely at surface mining, big quarries and reclamation work, jobs where a machine this size genuinely paid for itself. But 7 years is an eternity. By the time the HD41 reached the market, Caterpillar's D9H was making 410 horsepower and had an enormous dealer network, a parts network, and decades of trust behind it. Allis-Chalmers had a bigger number and a much smaller footprint. The Allis-Chalmers branded HD41 ran until 1974, when the company merged its construction division with Fiat and became Fiat Allis. The machine carried on as the 41B into the early 1980s. Then the Springfield plant closed, and that was the end of American Allis-Chalmers construction equipment. Today, a handful of HD41s survive in the hands of collectors. One 1972 example in South Carolina was rescued from a scrapyard for its scrap value of $10,000. That was very nearly the fate of the largest bulldozer America's second biggest equipment maker ever built. Number 6. The Double Dude. This one starts with a Caterpillar dealer in San Leandro, California, and a man named Buster Peterson. Peterson spent the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s building custom machines for his customers. And in the mid-1960s, he solved the push-loading problem, the same way everyone else was trying to: more tractor. He linked two Caterpillar D9Gs together with a yoke and ball joint and rigged an air control system so one operator, sitting in the front machine, could run both. The result doubled the horsepower and slashed cycle times. Caterpillar was impressed enough to buy the patent rights and start building the thing itself in 1968 as the DD9G, Dual D9G, a 770 horsepower tandem dozer sold through the regular dealer network. Peterson also built the first side-by-side D9G, two tractors mounted shoulder to shoulder, pushing one enormous 24-foot blade. Caterpillar introduced its own version in 1969, and then someone in Texas decided all of that wasn't enough. In 1976, Russell & Sons Construction Company of Longview, Texas, took one of their side-by-side D9H sets and did something nobody had tried. Instead of running the two tractors level with each other, they offset the right-hand machine 11 feet behind the left-hand one, a staggered stepped arrangement, so they could hang an absolutely absurd blade off the front. The blade was built by Bulldozer. It was 48 feet 8 inches long, variably curved along its length, and set at an angle designed to roll material sideways with the least possible resistance. The blade alone weighed around 27,600 pounds before you added the hardware. They named the machine Double Dude. Working in strip mine overburden, cutting passes up to 70 feet long, Double Dude moved 14,210 cubic yards of material in a single hour in 1977. That is a number that still makes mining engineers blink. It's been retired for years now. But Russell & Sons kept the blade and restored it as a billboard. The biggest dozer blade ever hung on a tractor now advertises the company that built it. Standing beside a road in East Texas, and almost nobody driving past has the faintest idea what they're looking at. Number 5. Big Musky. Everything on this list so far scooped, pushed, or hauled. Big Musky did something stranger. It walked. In 1969, the Central Ohio Coal Company put a machine into the coal fields of southeastern Ohio that had no equal on the planet. Bucyrus Erie built it for $25 million. It was a Model 4250W, a dragline that threw a bucket out on cables and dragged it back through the earth, and it was the only one ever built. The scale breaks your brain. It stood 222 feet tall, stretched 487 feet end to end, and was 151 feet wide, an 8-lane highway. It weighed 27 million pounds. The bucket held 220 cubic yards, 2 Greyhound buses, or a dozen cars, or 325 tons in a single bite. Too heavy for wheels or tracks, it had 2 hydraulic feet and walked, drawing more power than a city of 100,000. Over 22 years, it moved more than 600 million cubic yards, twice the Panama Canal. Then the 1990 Clean Air Act killed the market for Ohio's high-sulfur coal. Big Musky shut down in 1991 and was scrapped in 1999. Only the bucket survives. Number 4. The ACC Super Bulldozer. In Portogruaro, in northern Italy, there is a company called Umberto ACCO. It has been in business since the 1940s, building roads and infrastructure. And in the early 1980s, it received an order that would make it a legend among heavy equipment enthusiasts and then break its heart. The job was land development in Libya. Enormous scale, desert conditions, vast quantities of earth to move, and the equipment needed to be bigger than anything on the market, so Umberto ACCO built it himself. The ACC Super Bulldozer was assembled largely from Caterpillar components, but the important parts were custom. The blade in particular was bigger than anything Caterpillar had ever produced, 23 feet wide and 9 feet high. The whole machine ran over 40 feet long from the tip of the blade to the tip of the ripper on the back. The single-shank ripper alone stands about 10 feet tall, driven by hydraulic rams thicker than a person. It weighs 183 tons. Power comes from 2 Caterpillar diesels, 8 cylinders each, 675 horsepower each, mounted horizontally opposed for a combined 1,350 horsepower. To handle the loads, it was given 2 final drives per side, an upper and a lower, for extra torque. By every measure of size and mass, it is the largest and heaviest tracked bulldozer ever built. ACCO also built a companion machine, a colossal motor grader on the same philosophy. And then the world changed. In January 1986, the United States imposed sanctions on Libya. The international trade situation made the shipment impossible. The bulldozer never left Italy. It was never delivered, never commissioned, never used on the job it was designed for. It moved into storage and stayed there. Umberto ACCO died. His son died soon after. By 2008, the old works had become effectively a dumping ground for old earth-moving machinery, with the biggest bulldozer in the world sitting in the weeds among it. There is a small good ending. In May 2012, the machine was moved off the abandoned ACCO site, and it moved onto the transport trailer under its own power, tracks turning after decades of sitting. It was relocated within the same town for preservation, and in recent years it has been brought out for public display in Portogruaro. The largest bulldozer ever built has now spent over 40 years as a monument to a contract that fell through. Number 3. The LeTourneau TC-497 Overland Train. RG LeTourneau built earth-moving equipment, scrapers, dozers, loaders, and along the way he pioneered the diesel-electric drive system where every single wheel gets its own electric motor, like a locomotive that swapped steel wheels for rubber. In the 1950s, he pointed that technology at a very different problem. The US military needed to move enormous quantities of cargo across places with no roads, no rail, and no infrastructure. The Arctic, principally. Trucks got stuck. Convoys got strung out. LeTourneau's answer was to build a train that didn't need tracks. The early machines were the VC-12 Tonner train and the LCC-1 snow freighter, and they worked well enough that in 1958, the Army ordered something far bigger. The TC-497 Overland Train Mark II was completed in February 1962, and it is to this day the longest off-road vehicle ever built. It ran to 572 feet, 13 units, including a control car, cargo cars, and dedicated power cars, 54 driven wheels, every one turned by its own electric motor. Power came from 4 solar 10 MC gas turbines rated at 1,170 horsepower each, 3 in the power cars generating electricity, 1 in the control car. The whole thing was built largely from welded aluminium to save weight. The control car alone stood over 30 feet tall. Inside were sleeping berths, a galley, a toilet, and enough room for a crew of 6 to live aboard for days. It had radar. Every trailer steered itself, so instead of a 572-foot vehicle jackknifing on the first bend, the whole train tracked round corners like a snake. Loaded, it could carry 150 tons at around 20 miles an hour, with a range of 300 to 400 miles. And then nothing happened. Testing took place at Yuma Proving Ground in Arizona. It went well, but military priorities shifted. Budgets went to Vietnam, and helicopters were becoming a far more flexible answer to the same problem. The Arctic trials never took place. The overland train sat in the Arizona desert and was finally sold at auction in 1971. Most of it is gone. But the control car survived, and it's now a static display at the Yuma Proving Ground Heritage Center, restored by a volunteer crew in 2019. Kitchen, bunks, operator's station, and all. And because it was an Army test program, the film footage of it running is out there in the public domain. Number 2. Big Brutus. Drive south from Pittsburgh, Kansas, and you'll see it on the horizon long before you reach it. A black and orange shape, 16 stories tall, standing in a field of grass and water where a coal mine used to be. Big Brutus was commissioned in 1962 by the Pittsburgh and Midway Coal Mining Company. Bucyrus Erie built it at South Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and it cost $6.5 million, an enormous sum in 1962. Fabrication finished in May 1963, and then the machine was shipped to Kansas in 150 railroad cars. 52 men then spent 11 months assembling it on site. It stands 160 feet tall. It weighs 11 million pounds with ballast. The boom is 150 feet long, and the dipper holds 90 cubic yards heaped, about 150 tons, in a single bite, enough to fill 3 railroad cars at once. Top speed 0.22 miles per hour. It never dug coal. Not once. Its entire job was stripping the overburden, the dirt and rock lying on top of the seam, so that smaller machines could come in behind it and take the coal out. It could dig from around 20 down to nearly 70 feet, and it worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, clearing roughly a square mile a year. The crew at the controls was 3 men, backed by electricians and roller operators. It ran from 1963 until April 1974, when it dug itself out of its final pit, about 65 feet deep, and stopped. Coal at that site was no longer economic, and here is where it gets remarkable. Nobody scrapped it, nobody moved it. It was simply too big to move and too expensive to take apart. So Pittsburgh and Midway stripped out the electrical gear and left an 11 million pound machine standing exactly where it had stopped. In 1984, the company deeded it to a non-profit, and a museum opened around it the following year. The American Society of Mechanical Engineers made it a regional historic mechanical engineering landmark in 1987, and in January 2018, it went onto the National Register of Historic Places. It is now the largest electric shovel still in existence anywhere on Earth. You can climb it, you can sit in the operator's seat and put your hands on the levers, and most people have never heard of it. Number 1. The Silver Spade. In November 1965, in Harrison County, Ohio, a machine started digging that would not stop for 41 years. The Silver Spade was a Bucyrus Erie 1950B, built at South Milwaukee for Hannah Coal. Only 2 were ever made, the Spade and its sister, the GM of Egypt. The Spade existed because of an unlikely truce. Hannah's engineers insisted on a knee-action crowd, a jointed dipper arm that gave better digging geometry than the straight-stick Bucyrus normally used. Problem: the knee-action crowd was a patented Marion power shovel feature, and Marion was Bucyrus Erie's biggest rival, so the 2 competitors did a deal. Marion licensed the knee action and the boom design. Bucyrus gave up the rights to its cable crowd, which Marion then used on its own shovels for years afterward. The Silver Spade is one of the only machines on Earth built from both companies' best ideas at once. The numbers: 14 million pounds, 7,000 tons, 220 feet tall, a 200-foot boom, a 105 cubic yard dipper that took 315,000 pounds of rock and dirt in a single bite. It could swing 180 degrees and place that load 390 feet away. Peak rating on its AC motors was around 13,500 horsepower, and the entire machine, all 7,000 tons of it, was operated by 2 hand levers and 2 foot pedals. Over its working life, it is reported to have moved more than 600 million cubic yards of material. It outlived every other machine of its class. The Mountaineer was scrapped. The GM of Egypt was parked in 1988 and dismantled in 1991, its parts cannibalized to keep the Spade running. By the 2000s, the Silver Spade was the last giant stripping shovel operating anywhere in the world. In spring 2006, the ring circle at its base, the great bearing the whole upper structure rotates on, developed a crack and was judged beyond repair. It dug its last in April 2006. Then came the fight. A local group, the Harrison Coal and Reclamation Historical Park, tried to buy it and build a museum around it. The price was around $2.6 million, plus land reclamation costs. They raised a lot. They didn't raise enough. A salvage company began cutting in January 2007. On the 9th of February, they dropped the boom with explosives, and with that, any hope of a rescue was gone. By the 1st of March, most of it had been cut away. The cab and the bucket survive at the Harrison Coal and Reclamation Historical Park. That's it. The last of the great stripping shovels, a class of machine that reshaped an entire American landscape reduced to 2 pieces in a field, while the country it built moved on and forgot it existed. Which one of these surprised you most? And if you know of a forgotten giant I've missed, put it in the comments, because there are dozens more of these rusting away in fields right now, and somebody should probably remember them.